All right, well, welcome to this episode of the BR Show. You know, in this episode, we got three main topics that we're going to talk about, right? We got DLSS 5, that's been going fucking everywhere on the internet. Many people fucking clowning on it. You got Discord, you know, the future of Discord being really complicated. Especially since we really don't know if there's ever going to be an actual alternative, because it seems that, like, the way legislation is going around the world, it seems like anytime any chat program gets too big, it's just gonna, you know, crash and burn, because they have to have all this surveillance stuff happening all the time, and they're going to be forced to do so because world governments are saying, hey, you know, you don't get to have any privacy, you don't get to have any of that, you have to attach of an actual identification to whatever service you're using for it, because you got to think of the children. And, you know, that's going to be a topic to talk about. And the last topic that I'm going to be talking about here today, and the last thing to talk about, is going to be kind of a post-mortem on TF2 Gold Rush, right? Because that is something that I've been wanting to talk about, but I haven't really found a place to do so, because the thing about TF2 Gold Rush is that it's not dead. I mean, you can't really kill a mod. A mod is always going to have followers and stuff that are going to follow it and play it and stuff, right? I mean, they still play it a lot on the Discord. They do a couple of gaming sessions now and then, but I mean, as far as the futures hold for that mod, I mean, it's pretty much set and done, because they've pretty much achieved what they wanted to do, and now it's like, well, now what? You know, didn't know we'd get that far, but that's for later. First off, the main meat of the stream that we're going to be talking about is going to be DLSS 5. Here's the surprising thing. I actually held off on watching this specific video because I wanted to save it for the stream. I wanted to talk about it because, you know, I know a little bit more than the average person about machine learning, about freaking AI and what NVIDIA's trying to do with AI, and, you know, just everything, why they're going this direction. And one of the craziest parts is that it's not helping their company, you know, as far as the stock value. In fact, they're doing one of those downward spirals when it comes to their stock evaluation, which is hilarious. It's hilarious to watch them just crash and burn. And the thing is that it wasn't even brought on by this. They've been crashing and burning for a while now as far as their stock evaluation. A lot of people are selling. Actually, right now, you know what? Why not? Let's just search here real quick. Let's see. What? Oh, hold up. Let me open it up on another window real quick. NVIDIA stock. Let's see, where are we at? Man. Okay. So for the past month, it's just been going down. You know, had its peak around February, but now it's been trending downwards. It stayed steady for like throughout March. But now it's going even lower, and it's probably not being helped by it's not being helped at all by the fact of DLSS 5. And yes, OBS is stinky, Kimmy. That is totally true. So, like I said, I haven't watched the actual video itself. I've seen images. It looks bad, and I'm gonna assume that it looks even worse in motion. So I'm gonna watch this with you guys, because I haven't seen it, and I'll let you know my first opinions on this. Because from my perspective, so far, just from the still images, it looks like total ass. But maybe in motion, it looks a lot better. Just gonna have to wait and see, or at least me. All right, so this is DLSS 5 off. Basic graphics, you know, it has an art style. Hair is always going to be one of the most complicated things to render in a video game, because, you know, how do you simulate thousands of strands of hair, you know, in an efficient way to keep it 60 frames per second, and do it in such a way that looks good and doesn't look funky. I mean, even Shrek, like back in the day with like those old computers where they had to use like really huge render farms, had a lot of trouble rendering hair. And their solution to that was just making uncomplicated hairstyles, so that way they don't have to deal with long flowy hair until Shrek 2, and then you got to see Prince Charming's hair, you know, if you remember that stuff. And ever since that time, I mean, real-time hair physics just hasn't really been something that's been done well anyway. You still need to render it out for it to look nice. It's just one of the biggest fucking biggest mysteries as far as rendering goes, besides water physics. Because if there's two things that just destroy any PC real time, it's hair physics and water physics. There's just something about liquids and things that are malleable that just destroy a GPU. That's just how it's always going to be. And so I'm thinking, you know, all right, well, how is DLS S5 going to help with this? And well, let's see how it goes. You know, the face also, you know, looks a little plasticky, but that's something you're always going to see with 3D graphics, that uncanny valley. Can't wait. Oh. No. Okay. I get what people mean now. I'm looking at this, and the first thing that comes off is this just looks like an Instagram filter. And I'm sure fucking a lot of people have already said this before, where they say that this looks like it's an AI generated image. But then seeing it in motion, it looks even worse because the animation doesn't fit, right? Like, okay, here's another thing that you might not know. Here's some inside baseball about graphics cards, is that they're not made to be as accurate as possible either. They're meant to be fast. As far as gaming consumer graphics cards go, they're meant to be fast and not accurate. In fact, back in the day with the 1000 series graphics cards, the 1080 Ti was the most powerful consumer graphics card, right? Oh yeah, Leon Kennedy, yeah, he's the GOAT. So back in the 1000 series graphics cards, the 1080 Ti was was the top dog. But then there was also that one tier above it, which was the Titan graphics card, right? The 1000 series Titan graphics card, and there wasn't really that much difference between the 1080 Ti and the Titan, right? A lot of people did benchmarks, and honestly, it was a much better, more efficient use of your money to just buy a 1080 Ti or even SLI 21080s, because the Titan was just so overpriced for what you actually got to see. But the difference is that the Titan had actual like professional grade hardware and software and drivers that the 1080 Ti didn't have. And one of those things in the Titan graphics card that it had was it's been so long I can't really remember. But the long and short of it is just that it was a lot more accurate in its calculations. So you had less of this, you know, this jitter. If you look at her movement, right? If you look at the movement here of her just standing still, right? Not even moving that much, just standing still. Yeah, you could see this little bit of jitter in her model when the animation is moving, right? Just this little bit of jitter, that inaccuracy. When you're making animation or stuff for movies or commercials or anything that requires rendering and is done by a professional studio in Blender or even Unreal Engine, you need graphics cards that have like I forgot what exactly, but I think it has something to do with floating point values, because floating point values, which if you don't know are like decimal numbers. Computers have a really hard time dealing with decimal numbers because you have such a limited amount of space when it comes to how much you can fit into a single like slot of memory, right? You've heard of 32-bit, 64-bit. 64 bits, while that would encompass a really huge number, for floating point values, which means decimal numbers, you don't really have that much space. I don't know how to explain this without going into way too much detail, but point is that it's really hard on consumer grade hardware to be really accurate in those things, because you need a graphics card that has high accuracy as far as graphics is concerned. And the Titan had that. That's why it was so overpriced, because it was literally professional grade hardware. And it also came with professional grade drivers that allowed you to use it with like Blender for high accuracy, because you need that high quality, high fidelity for animation and movie grade 3D rendering. In gaming, you don't really need that. I mean, you're not really gonna require that kind of definition for gaming because it's fucking gaming. And I just noticed real quick is that the chat box isn't appearing on my screen. Why is it not doing anything? Oops, did I do something wrong? Uh-oh, there we go. Oh, oh my god. It's behind. Okay. Let me just fix that real quick. And let me get back to my train of thought here. So I know I messed up. Thank you, Betrayed Spoon. So where was I? Right. So that's one thing that is gonna mess up DLSS 5 because I mean, still framed, it looks fine. I guess, you know, it has higher definition. It loses all its artistic quality, which we'll talk about artistic value. But right now, I'm just talking about the technology itself. I'm talking, and so far, yeah, it just looks bland, right? It looks bland. But one of the things that is always going to throw it off with the Uncanny Valley is always going to be the animations. And one of those things right here, because you know, consumer grade hardware doesn't require, like, game engines don't have that much accuracy when it comes to animation, and because of that, you're gonna get a lot of this jitter and stuff, and it's just not gonna look right. It's not gonna look realistic. Still framed, it looks, I guess, impressive to the normal person, right, to the layman, but to someone who's so like used to playing video games at high frame rates, and you're always up close to the screen, and you're noticing all these details, this is always gonna look jank, right? So I'm gonna assume that with the next clip, it's gonna look a little bit more apparent, right? So Leon Kennedy, there's that upgrade, and they're not showing motion. Oh, there we go. Here, another limitation, which if you didn't know, is motion capture. Motion capture has always sucked. I don't know how else to explain it. But motion capture from, I don't know if you guys remember all those like weird movies from back in the day, like Mars Needs Moms. Yeah, Mars Needs Moms. The Polar Express. I forgot what other movies had motion capture as their animation style, right? Because most other not traditionally, I mean, most other 3D animated films use keyframe animation, right? Maybe they use a reference, maybe they use a person as reference, but most of the time with 3D animation, you have keyframe animators who, you know, literally pose the model using a mouse and keyboard or like a pen. The point is that there is no human motion. It's instead like moved like if it was stop motion, but in a 3D program. And when you do keyframe, you can adjust these little details and stuff, and it's not done fast, but it is done accurate. And because the animator has so much control over animations, it makes it look nice, you know? The reason why 3D studios rarely ever use, for films especially, rarely use, what do they call it? Motion capture, is because it looks janky, one, and two, because of the accuracy of the motion capture devices themselves isn't that great. It just doesn't look good. Because then you also have to clean it up, and then there's a lot of effort there, but it is fast. And that's why they use it in video games, because if you ever needed an animation done on the fly, which in game development is really iterative, so you kind of need that fast turnover of, hey, I need an animation of a guy jumping, put on this motion capture, do it, we'll do a little bit of cleanup, but not too much. We're not going to spend like months on this one animation capture. You know, we just need somebody in a suit quickly doing an animation of somebody jumping, you know? They do it quick, but then it doesn't look natural. It doesn't look like if it's truly good motion. So here, when I'm noticing, right, DLSS 5, before I see the actual, like, the upgrade, quote unquote, is, like, you can tell this person is, or you can tell that this model is being motion captured, or the animation is being motion captured. Like, it's really easy to see because, you know, they have their hands kind of in an awkward position. It doesn't look natural. The way that they're walking is just, it just doesn't look right. It looks like it's somebody in a suit holding a wand walking. And thank you so much, Kimmy, for the super chat. Again, what's up? Oh man, it doesn't appear on the chat. I'm not familiar with this live streaming stuff, guys. I'm sorry. But But anyways, back to my thing, right? Well, real quick, because I'm sure that Kimmy would like me to tell you guys, is that she just sent me a super chat 149 with a peach emoji. And you know, it's funny. I wish it would have shown. That would have been really funny while I'm here yapping about that stuff. But anyways, right? So, jank animations. Let's see it with DLSS on. I do have Streamlabs. I am using Streamlabs. That's the thing. But I don't know, man. Last Sunday I was trying to stream and then my voice wasn't going through, and so I had to cancel the entire thing in order to figure that out. Like I ran out of time. I was on a strict schedule. Oh well, you know. But whatever. We'll just continue here. So, oh, that looks awful. That looks like total ass. Holy shit! Oh, what do they do to you? Okay. So, I mean, unlike Resident Evil, right? Which Resident Evil has a more realistic art style, more realistic proportions. With Hogwarts Legacy, like you could tell that the art style is supposed to be more fantasy-wise, right? Because it's a movie about wizards and stuff. What? All right, see you later, Kimmy. Thank you so much for stopping by. Hey, oh man. Oh, well, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed the show so much so far. Hopefully, I'm entertaining enough to hold it down for what? How long have I been streaming for? 25 minutes. But anyways, right? Hogwarts has its own art style that's realistic adjacent, but you know, you still have some exaggerated proportions. And when you put a filter over it that makes it look more realistic, it just doesn't look right. It like it's I don't know how to explain it, but one of those things, right? First of all, the lighting just looks awful. It looks like oh man, there was this one meme, right, where it's like or you know what? I don't know if you guys remember this from like a long time ago. This is like early 2010s internet, but that realistic Mario face. Hold up, let me see if I can pull that up real quick. Super Mario, or it's that Mario realistic face. There it is. It's, oh my god. It's literally this. Right? It's literally this. That's her face. Oh man. Like that's literally how it looks, like a Photoshop that's intentionally made to look bad. Like how does that happen? Well, I know how that happens. It's because they're using just a generic filter on the game. They're not even like using a they're not even using like the art style in order to complement the game. No, it's just using whatever technology to quote unquote upscale the game, and it looks bad. It looks awful, and I'm sure it's gonna look even more awful in motion. Which, here you go. That looks bad. When she moves, you could kind of tell that the texture that's being applied on here by the well, first of all, look at her eyes. Look at her eyes. I don't know, man. Like, are her eyes supposed to look like that? Hold on, go. I guess so, but it looks so much more natural in game than otherwise. Why? And then when she's in motion, it looks like her face is being stretched unnaturally. It looks like an image that's being stretched and squashed. Like those early AI videos that what was it called? Wumbo AI, the one where like you can put an audio and then just lip sync it with like somebody's face and it looks like it's stretching and whatever. And that's because I don't think the technology DLSS like has like a depth buffer. Like I think it's literally just taking the rasterized image, which is just the complete image, and just putting a filter over it. Like there's like it seems like it doesn't understand like what's far away and what's close up, and because of that, it makes everything in motion just look awful. And this one, I feel like this one might be like a showcase on upgrading bad texture work, because I mean his face doesn't look that good, right? But I feel like this will look infinitely better than whatever the hell it's gonna be shown on the afterwards, man. Let's see. Yeah, I was right. It really does look like Photoshop, still wise. I'm wondering how it's gonna look in motion, but it literally takes away whatever artistic merit there is, you know, whatever art style. Because I'm sure that Hogwarts Legacy wasn't going for high fidelity graphics, and maybe there has been some optimization and stuff. But when you optimize, you have to keep certain things consistent with the art style to, at the very least, still make an attempt to make it look good, even if the fidelity is lower. I mean, we saw that a lot with like Xbox 360 games, right? Where they still looked good, but you could tell where they had to cut corners in graphic fidelity. Specifically, like the Call of Duty games. If you ever played like Black Ops 2, Modern Warfare 3, like those games specifically, like they looked fine, but if you actually took a moment to look at like details on character models, you would notice like, oh, well, they don't have that much intricate shading or anything like that. And well, yeah, this doesn't look high fidelity. Does this look any better? No. No, it really just looks like those filters that people would put over games to make it look more real. Okay. Quick detour. What this reminds me of are these videos that were coming out like a while ago that went semi-viral, but they weren't like the most popular things in the world. Hold up. Grand Theft Auto 5 in Dubai. I think it was either Dubai or something like that, or Grand Theft Auto 5 in India. I believe that's what they were called. And so what they would do. Oh yeah, here we go. So, right, like I like this is what basically DLSS 5 is doing. It's doing these videos of GTA 5, where it would literally just overlay it with some sort of data set. Now, I'm assuming that with NVIDIA's DLSS 5, right, what they're trying to do is have a really huge data set, so that way it could be used in general use with any game, not just specifically third-person games, first-person game. I'm assuming they want to use it in everything. There's probably still some integration that's necessary, right? Some implementation with the API for DirectX, but aside from that, not DirectX. What's something NVIDIA drivers? I don't know if they have an actual title, but you know, just the NVIDIA drivers, right? And this is exactly what it reminds me of with the gameplay here, of like just a machine learning algorithm that takes a data set and overlaps it existing footage. And I mean, it's impressive, right? It's impressive in that it's possible at all, but at the end of the day, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. And second of all, you know, this is what's poisoning our water, right? All these machine learning data centers and stuff that is poisoning our water just to make a game look like it's being played through a filter. And just in motion, it just doesn't look good. Like, just doesn't look good. Um, man, I really don't know how much more I can take of this, man. Terrible. All right. I mean, I think out of all of these, this one kind of looks the best. I think. But, I mean, that makes sense. Except for the shoulder right here. What the hell's going on here? That's another part that's also going to be messing up this filter is the models, right? Because the models in video games aren't that intricate. You know, they try to optimize wherever they can, and one of those things is usually that like clothing and skin and hair and all these little parts that you would think would be individual pieces are actually not individual pieces. They're all together. They're all one lump because it makes it a lot easier to load onto memory, and it's a lot more efficient. And instead of using like individual parts and muscles and stuff that you would see in a production like with Pixar or DreamWorks, right? If you've ever seen the bonus features with any DreamWorks movie or a Pixar movie, you will know that like in their in development phase where they show a lot of the glitches, you will notice that a lot of models do have muscles or muscle simulations. So that way, you know, when there's things in motion, when you know characters move their body parts around, they will stretch and squeeze, or they will show enough stress, you know, within underneath the skin, kind of simulate that realism in a way, right? You don't really see it with something like Toy Story because with Toy Story, well, they're toys; they don't have muscles or anything. But with something that features a lot more human characters, like what's a movie that came out recently that's 3D animated? I don't know. Last movie I watched that was like animated, I believe, was The Last Wish. You know, Puss in Boots, and you know those human characters. Like, if we were to look at the developmental phases of that movie, you would see that the human models and even Puss in Boots himself has like muscles being simulated everywhere. Okay, so okay, Betrayed Spoon. Let's see. So DLSS 5 does do a pretty good job on stuff that aren't faces like landscapes, in my opinion. Well, yeah, of course. That's because now I'm gonna act like an authority on this, but even I don't know that much about it because I'm not a biologist, I'm not an anthropologist or anything like that. But I feel like the reason why landscapes and stuff look a lot better than like faces and human bodies is one because of the limitation of technology in video games themselves, but also two just because like our brains are hardwired to recognize human things, right? Human features and stuff. And that's why the uncanny valley exists, and that's why things like DLSS 5 aren't really that good on human body parts because we're kind of hardwired to like notice those fine details, you know. Um, in landscapes, well, I feel like it's a lot easier to fool us with landscapes because like we're just not trained on that, right? We don't have that instinctive lookout for landscapes. Now, another thing that could be a reason why, as far as the data sets that NVIDIA uses, is that they probably have a shit ton more data sets on landscapes than they do people. Because even though you know people share their faces online and everything, it's still really hard to get data on people. You know, to get enough wide ranges of facial features and other stuff because not everybody uploads their face on the internet. And on top of that, you know, not every company is selling their data of people's faces on the internet, you know. So I don't know how Nvidia sources their data sets for facial features and, you know, other human body parts and stuff. Who knows how they do it in order to train their AI algorithms and stuff. Maybe they use portfolios of stock images and stuff. But I feel like any company that does machine learning is going to have a really hard time getting data on human features, and that's why That's why data is so valuable in the 21st century, especially now with AI that requires data sets and requires hundreds of billions of gigabytes, maybe even petabytes of data in order to data to train to make things look more realistic. And also, it's poisoning our water supplies and sapping up our electrical grids. Um, I mean, I feel like that's the that's the biggest disappointment because I mean, if this technology was just existed like on its own and it was just something that was included with NVIDIA graphics cards that had no real cost aside from like the hours for a programmer to do, I don't feel like people would be complaining about it, right? But the fact that it's like actively making things worse, for everybody just to make you know, a soccer player's face on esports FC look a little bit more realistic, I feel like that's kind of what pisses people off. But I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you that it could work a lot better with landscapes, and that's one thing that I wanted to touch on later on. But I guess now it's a good time because I mean we're almost at the end of the video, right? Is that there are problems. All right, there are problems that machine learning can solve that would be a lot better uses than what they're using it for now. And one of those things is landscapes, and specifically for me, that being texture work, right? Because one of the ways to optimize a game, right, is to have lower resolution textures depending on, how far they are, how close they are. And just like you said, DLSS 5 does pretty good on environmental details. So what I'm thinking is, well, they could just use that somehow to get past that limitation where you would have low resolution textures and then upscale them using a machine learning algorithm. I feel like that would be a much better use case than what they're doing with now, where they just take a rasterized image and then they try to make it look better using motion vectors and all this mumbo jumbo that NVIDIA talks about. Because I don't think people are going to be such sticklers with texture work looking kind of janky. I mean, I don't think most people really really take notice of when like shortcuts are being done with environmental details and levels, right? If you've ever played any video game like in the past like in the past 15 years, like unless you're really looking for it, you're never really going to notice when a texture is being used over and over again, right? Level designers don't make textures for every single level in their game. A lot of times they reuse textures, and sure, nowadays maybe you have bigger teams and bigger environmental artists that do make unique textures, but overall they're trying to reuse as much as possible, not only to cut costs but also to cut time, right? Because then like why go off and work on a new texture for a week when you can just grab one that looks just fine and then reuse it somewhere else. Recently I watched a video on Left 4 Dead 2, which I shared on my Discord. So if you're not part of the Discord, please join it. It's kind of empty. I would like to get more people there so I could talk to more of you guys if you guys are watching. On my Discord, I shared a video talking about like the misconceptions on Left 4 Dead 2. Specifically with the Cropecat video. There was a guy who was rebuttaling Cropecat's misinformation, which now I see is like, oh shit, like there's an actual case to be said that like, yeah, Cropecat's video was not, not good faith and stuff. And I've kind of already accepted the fact that Cropecat doesn't really make good videos in the sense of like reputable, well-argued videos, but more makes like pop videos, just videos meant to go viral rather than videos that are meant to inform. Because there are huge inaccuracies with that video, and this guy talks about it in that Left 4 Dead 2 video. Let me see if I can. Yeah. So the video is called "A Game Poisoned by Its Own Fandom." It's made by a guy called DSHK. And in that video, one thing that he pointed out was that when Left 4 Dead 1 was being completed, they completely redesigned the art style of the game, right? They redesigned almost everything about the game because of the limitations with the source engine and because something that they were unhappy with, and it was left unfinished. And when Valve stepped in, well, they needed to complete the game, and then they need to work on Left 4 Dead 2 and port over the maps from Left 4 Dead 1 and all that stuff. And in that whole conundrum between the beta stage of Left 4 Dead 1 and the launch of Left 4 Dead 2, if you look at Left 4 Dead 1, at the Left 4 Dead 1 maps, you will notice that they reuse a lot of assets from Half-Life 2 and Team Fortress 2 within Left 4 Dead 1. And the reason why they did that was because they were on a strict time schedule. Left 4 Dead 1 came out, was launched, and then Left 4 Dead 2 came out a year later, right? Because of A, B, or C reason. Watch the video; it's really good. I posted it on my Discord. Check it out. I'll post it in chat. Just that way you're not forced to go to my Discord. You can just look at it right there, and let's see. Yeah. It's this video. It's a really good video. A little bit of venom in their voice, but it's still a really good video. And it's like people like to think of Valve as this master crafting studio that does no wrong and won't do the same mistakes as other AAA studios. But when the guy revealed that, no, yeah, Left 4 Dead 2 was a rushed game. It was something that I forgot the reason that they theorized that why Valve wanted to pump out Left 4 Dead 2 so fast. When you look at the details, and it's like they didn't really have consistency. They just wanted to get the game out as soon as possible, redesign the game, and even though it was unfinished, it still came out well. Valve was fallible. Valve did not live up to the high standard that a lot of people perceive them to be at, right? They reused assets from Half-Life 2 and Team Fortress 2 within Left 4 Dead 1. If you look at those details, they become very apparent, especially with there's a level, oh my god, which one was it? I think it was Blood Harvest, right? Where there's a derailed train. If you look closely at one of the trains, it's just a recolored TF2 train, right? They didn't remodel it or anything. They didn't change. It's just retextured from, I believe, a red color to just an orange color, and maybe made a little bit darker just to obfuscate the fact that it's from Team Fortress 2. There's just a lot of things about that, and so when you come back, which now I have to fucking come back to the main point of this, it's that AAA studios are always going to be like cutting corners, and I think that the technology that Nvidia is developing very much can help with development and making games look better. It's just that they're not doing it in a way to make it better for gamers. Rather, they're doing it as a way to sell their AI technology, right? They're just doing it to sell the DLSS brand rather than it being something functionally useful for developers or even useful for gamers, right? Because these toys, right? I like to call them toys. These toys would definitely be interesting if they were done right. They're not being done right, and that's why everybody's fucking memeing on them. All right, they're being done in such a way that it's obnoxious, right? It's some, and not to mention, Jensen Huang, Jensen Huang, I don't, Huang or Huang, old Jason. Let's just call him Jason. So good old Jason says that we're wrong. It doesn't look bad. It looks really good. No, it doesn't. You're just trying to save your stock mark. You're trying to save your stock evaluation from taking a fucking nosedive that it already has been, right? It hasn't gone up since February. February was the peak this year, and now it's just been going down, and it's been going down for the past week because of the bad reputation of DLSS 5. Right? You're not doing this for the gamers, and well, yeah, no shit, right? Jensen Huang hasn't been doing anything for gamers in a long while. He shifted to the AI thing. He's been selling himself to the U.S. military. he's just trying to salvage everything, and it sucks. But not only does it suck, it also fucks everybody over, man. Like, that is the most frustrating thing about all of this, is that you have shitty technology that's not being made for the benefit of anybody that actually cares about this kind of stuff. Instead, it's being made for the benefit of the shareholders of the company, because that's the only people that really it matters that the stock value is going down. And at the same time, the resources necessary to develop this stuff is coming at the expense of regular people who probably don't even know what NVIDIA is. You know, just working people who now have a data center close by to where they live that is always making noise, that is poisoning their water, and that is making their electricity bill go up and up because of how much power and resources that data center is using just to train an algorithm to make a game look like it's being run through a fucking Instagram filter. Like, who? It's being supported by my government because, you know, they don't want to reel in AI. You know, they don't want to tell these corporations, hey, maybe you shouldn't be fucking over, you know, people's drinking water supply, you know? Maybe you shouldn't be fucking over the global economy. Maybe you shouldn't be A, B, or C, D, you know, all this stuff. No, they just let them do whatever they want because, I don't know, they made a donation to the ballroom, or fucking they just showed up to the inauguration day or whatever. Jensen Huang selling themselves to the Pentagon to use machine learning for their drones to identify targets and stuff like that. So that way the Pentagon would be, you know, convinced to buy more NVIDIA graphics cards to use for the machine learning and blah, blah, blah for their unmanned drone. All of this, and trying to sell us the idea that DLS S5 is somehow this revolutionary good thing for gamers, so that way their stock would stop, you know, doing a fucking nosedive, which thankfully, I'm not crazy, you're not crazy, nobody's crazy. This shit sucks. And I do hope that NVIDIA, you know, one day just closes its doors, because the amount of damage they've done to everybody, you know, it's unforgivable. You know, not just because they messed up the lives of regular old people, but because they messed up the lives of gamers. We can't buy the next graphics card for less than $700 anymore. The next top of the line graphics card, you know, the 1080 Ti was the best graphics card ever, and that's why I'm still running it. You know, and fuck, man. But at the same time, it's like, I kind of know that there really is no competition either. You know, AMD ain't gonna do shit. AMD is doing the same thing as Nvidia is doing. You know, they're trying to sell themselves off to the devil as well. You know, they're trying to get on that AI hype train. And then Intel, what the fuck is Intel doing? Dude, they haven't released the new graphics card line either. Like, I mean, oh man, oh god. Everybody keeps saying that it's a bubble. It's a bubble. AI is a bubble. Well, when's it gonna pop? And then when it does pop, who's gonna pay the consequences? Fuck, man. Because the entire U.S. economy is based on is being propped up by the transfer of wealth between AI companies. It's just going back and forth, man. And that's GDP, and because of that, it makes the number line go up. So I don't know, man. I don't know where it's going. I really don't know what's gonna happen next. All I know is that DLS S5 fucking sucks, and I'm glad that Nvidia's doing a downward spiral as far as their stock evaluation is going, which is good because that's all they care about. So, you know, if what they care about is going down in the red, then fuck, man. I am happy to see you suffer. But enough about Nvidia. Let's talk about another company that did something stupid, right? Discord. Woo! Yeah, Discord, you know, requiring IDs for age verification, you know, and then when everybody was pissed off, you know, suddenly Discord wanted to go back and like retract and say, well, you know, maybe yes, no, maybe so. Obviously, that's not the case. But I was watching this video from Gamers Nexus talking about, you know, Discord alternatives because you know, I was curious, like what else is there in the market, right? What else is there to compete with Discord that could possibly be the next big thing, right? You have TeamSpeak, which is trying to prop itself up as the Discord killer. It's trying to make itself be the next big thing as far as like chat services go. Which I don't think it's gonna happen. But you know what? Let me first talk about the context here first. And you know, everybody wants to jump ship from Discord because you know, they don't want to give up their privacy. They don't want to, you know, use an ID to verify their age because then, you know, data leaks happen all the time. Almost every single big company suffers a data breach in one way or another, and Discord is no different because they've already had a couple over the past decade that they've existed, right? Discord came out, I believe, in 2015, 2016, somewhere around there. And in that time, they've had multiple breaches because, you know, Discord wasn't always a big company. And, you know, anything that requires payment processing, well, you know, people are going to try to attack it from every single direction because there's huge profit in stealing data, especially credit cards, social security numbers, IDs and stuff, you know, the stuff that gets sold in the black market or in the open market by data collectors who just want to, you know, sell that stuff to data brokers so that way they can sell that to AI companies so that way they can package that stuff up to be used as data sets for their machine learning algorithms, right? That can then be sold to advertisers, one person to another, lots of great stuff, right? And that really got me thinking about like alternatives. Like, is there really somewhere to go? And first I thought about, you know, guilds, right? Guilds was the alternative that tried to exist. But then when I looked it up, well, no, guilds died a while ago. It was bought by Roblox and then it was shut down, right? But and it's not even like guilds was free from any controversy either, because guilds literally was like a PDF files wet dream. There was literally no security with that stuff. I mean, you think Discord's bad, guilds was probably worse from what I remember. And so, you know, here comes Gamers Nexus talking about, you know, self-hosted alternatives, right? If you're somebody who's a lot more invested with your privacy online and you don't want a company to be requiring you to use your ID, you're going to want to look for a self-hosted alternative, because if you go with any other alternative that is, you know, that is centralized, that uses data centers and stuff, you're going to open yourself up to disappointment later in time if it ever gets big, because a lot of people are going to flock to one service, right? They're not going to distribute themselves evenly across other services. No, there's going to be one, and then everybody's going to join one, and next thing you know, you got YouTubers saying, hey, come join my gloop, or prog, or salmon, you know, salmon. Join my fucking whatever server, right? That's just gonna happen. And so I watched the video, and at the end, I was like, dude, none of these. None of these are the solution. And obviously Gamers Nexus makes that very clear, right? Like these services are meant more for you know, your close friend group, which would apply to me and my friend group, right? In that, you know, we have a small community, we just share images, memes and stuff, maybe some IRL stuff because, you know, we want to share it, like a social media thing, right? Kind of like you know, Instagram or Facebook or whatever, but through Discord. And there's just something a little bit more of a vibe change when you're sharing stuff over Instagram compared to over Discord. And you know, Discord was always the gamer outlet, right? So these alternatives would definitely be good for us, but the question is, would it be worth the pain? And that really got me thinking, like, how many people are actually going to how many people are actually going to make the effort to not use Discord? And I know I'm going to sound a little doomer about this, but I think most people are just gonna say fuck it. Here's my ID. I don't care. Which which I know sounds bad, right? It sounds bad that like people don't care that much about their data, but I remember when I was when I was alive during the early 2010s, you know, Facebook and other social medias at the time, like what was it? Oh my god, I'm having a brain fart right now. I remember I, back in the day, social media in general, Facebook. Why can't I think of anything else? I mean, Snapchat existed back then as well. But you know what? Facebook's a good example because that's the premier. You know, pack up your data and sell it to other people while you're using the service for free, right? Like they always said this. There was always that saying that said like, oh, if it's free, then you are the product, and that was true with Facebook, right? Because they sold your data in order to make their profit, and you know that's how you got to use the website for free because they would just sell your data to advertisers, and advertisers would advertise to you more or in a more personal level. Um, you know, back in the day, people were saying like, dude, why would you do that? You know, why would you willingly give Facebook your information? Why aren't you, you know, having some obfuscation and stuff? Because that's how the internet worked back in the day. Was that like sharing your personal information online was seen as taboo. But as the internet expanded and more, you know, regular people who weren't as tech savvy joined, well, they didn't know anything about the culture. They didn't know anything about like, you know, OPSEC and stuff. So, you know, they willingly gave their information, put it online. I mean, it wasn't uncommon to literally put your street address on Facebook in a public profile. Uh, Lots of people would fucking do that because I mean that was the whole point of Facebook. You know, was that to catch up with old friends and you know and like hey, if you get somebody's address, like you use it as a what was that called? Yellow Pages, right? The phone book directory. Like that's what people would use it as a directory like the Yellow Pages. I hope I'm remembering that correctly. The phone book. People would put their phone numbers, their emails, and everything. It's stuff that like before that time would be taboo, and even and now even more so because of doxing and stuff and swatting and scams and identity theft. But that's just how it was. And the thing is that like no matter how much you told people, hey, don't do that. Don't give your real name. Don't give your address. Don't give your phone number. Don't tell strangers anything. You know, keep your security to yourself. No matter how much you said it, people still ended up using it. And guess what? Facebook is one of the biggest companies in the world now because so many people use it. So many people depend on it. You know, I know people who don't use WhatsApp or don't use Line. Instead, they use fucking Facebook Messenger to do their phone calls over Wi-Fi. And they don't mind that Facebook is harvesting their data that it requires, especially Instagram now with like the teenage filters, right? If the text that you are underage on Instagram, they require you to upload like a photo of your face or your ID, I believe. And what's crazy about that is that a lot of people just fucking do it because they depend on Instagram, right? So some of this is really just the fact that like a lot of these social medias are predatory, right? They're the only solution and you kind of need them to do whatever you need to do, right? Most people use it casually, but a lot of people really do use these social media websites as their business, as their way to like make their money to eat, you know, to work and live. And and you have these big companies just taking hostage of that fact, and people say yeah sure whatever. So when you go to Discord, well, so many people use Discord for so many reasons, either to stay with their friend group, to game with other people, to socialize, to e-date, which people who join, you know, like not to judge, but at the same time, why, you know, to e-date on Discord e-dating servers. They use Discord for a lot of things. And while the discussion is hot and popular right now that like, yeah, you know, fuck Discord for wanting to get my identity, for requiring me to upload like an ID, a driver's license or something to verify the fact that I'm over 18. even though that's a hurdle right now, and people are making conversations about moving off to other competitors because fuck Discord, how long before they just say, well, there's nothing we can do? Then goes the fucking doomer mentality where, oh, well, there's nothing we can do. I need my Discord server. I've had it for like since the very beginning. I don't want to throw it away. I can't sacrifice it, or it's too much of a pain in the ass to move forward from it. Right? Like that's just the reality of it. Like, what is the percentage going to be at the end of the day? How many people are going to stay on Nitro because of all the features and stuff that is available through Discord that other competitors just don't have? And there's going to be a lot of people. I mean, I don't know how to label them, but there's going to be like there's also going to be that thought process of like, well, if every other company that is centralized is fucked, if every other like large scale voice communication software on the internet is just fucked, and eventually they'll all have to like deal with governments telling them, hey, you need to verify ages, do I really want to be a nomadic person and switch software like every 2 years? I mean, some people are, right? Some people are gonna jump from software to software, playing cat and mouse with every government, to see which ones can stay alive longer, right? Just to escape the age verification stuff. But how long before their legs tire out and they're like, well, I guess I'll just give in. Here, I have my ID, because I'm sick of it. And how many people are just gonna do that from straight up from day one? Like that's the real determining factor. Because yeah, it's a hot button issue now. People are talking about it. People are discussing like, hey, maybe we shouldn't give Discord or our IDs to verify because of all the data breaches, and just it's the principle of the matter. But will that really be the mass populace? Will that really be most people, the majority of people who use Discord? Are you sure they're not just gonna like just say, well, oh well, guess I'll stay on Discord? Because just like Facebook, people use Discord for a lot of things. They're really dependent on Discord, especially with all the features that it offers, right? And if some people are gonna switch, right? If they're gonna use either TeamSpeak, Stoke, Flux, or Matrix, any of those other services for the close friend group, that's what they can do, and that's what they're going to do. But I truly think that the masses, the mainstream, is probably gonna stay on Discord, as doomer as that is, because there has to be systematic change. Like if you really want like actual like an actual good end to this, there has to be systematic change, because you can't just leave it to a company itself. Because like you can't, because I think a lot of people are like blaming governments too much. Not saying that they're not at fault, that they're not 100% at fault, because it is the regulations, right? These old boomers who don't see eye to eye on this, right? These people who are just like, oh, think of the children, these pro clutching old guys in Congress and in the European Union. Like, it really is their fault, right? Because they're the ones pushing this legislation. But at the same time, you also gotta accept the fact that it's also not just it's not just them that are at fault here. It's also Discord, because Discord isn't doing this because they truly care about children. They don't really care about us. They don't care about anything, right? It's a company that's trying to make profit here, and at the end of the day, the reason why they're doing this is just because they don't want to get sued. Like they don't want to be held liable for any of this, for any of the controversies that happen on Discord, because Discord is infamous. I mean, if you've ever seen a text-to-speech video, which is a channel, right? That text-to-speech is a channel that covers, these kind of fringe social media stuff, and they're mostly popular through Discord. I mean, even if you take all the Discord memes about like all these servers that are just like weird people and stuff, right? Like I think what Discord wants to do is just not be held liable for any of this. At the end of the day, that's why they're implementing all this age verification and checks and stuff. Is because they just don't want to be held liable. Now, so what systematic change would be necessary? Well, I think we kind of already have a good example of that, where you can't just like say, oh, it's 100% the government's fault, it's 100% Discord's fault. No, it's both of their faults. They're the ones causing this issue. First off, governments for passing legislation, and second of all, Discord for jumping the gun on stuff, right? So that way they're not held liable for any of the shit that happens on Discord. I think there is one previously done thing that could probably save the way Discord works and other competitors as well, in not, kneeling to the powers of pro-clutching boomers. And that has to be YouTube. YouTube is that example of how a systematic change could definitely benefit the user, us, right? Because I'm gonna have to fucking try really hard to remember the specifics here. But a long time ago, right? YouTube was sued for some reason. I need to look this up. I guess it was the 2007 Viacom lawsuit. Yeah, I think it was this one. Yeah. Okay. So in 2007, Viacom sued lawsuit. Viacom sued YouTube because people were just uploading clips of TV shows, anime, and all that stuff on YouTube. If you remember back in the day, you would remember just seeing on YouTube, Naruto episode 2, part 1, part 2, part 3, right? Because there was a 10-minute limit on TV shows and stuff. Or not on TV shows, just on all videos. And that's what people would do. People would upload content on copyrighted content on YouTube, and Viacom sued YouTube for it. And I don't understand why this is taking so long to load. It's just a Wikipedia page, right? So yeah, here we go. So it was the Viacom International Inc. versus YouTube Inc., right? Here's the Wikipedia page. You can read all about it. But this is the important part right here, which was that YouTube had that safe harbor provision from the DMCA that shielded a company being liable for infringing behavior, right? Which was specifically copyright infringement, which is a civil matter, right? It's not criminal, it's civil, I believe, right? Where nobody goes to prison. Instead, it's just it's not like pirating. Rather, it's just copyright infringement, which is a civil thing. I could be wrong. I'm not a lawyer. This isn't this isn't legal advice. Yada yada yada. Right? Disclaimer. But the short of it is that because of the safe harbor provisions, because YouTube just at minimum allows you to flag a video, because they have the proper procedures to take down stuff, they are not liable for copyrighted material being uploaded onto the website. Instead, it's it has to be settled between the person being affected, or the entity being affected, and the person uploading the copyrighted material. Now, there's a lot of stuff that had went bad with the DMCA that I'm sure everybody's aware of. All the negativity that has happened because of the DMCA and stuff, and people hate the DMCA. But if there's one good thing about the DMCA, about just the Digital Millennium Act, Content Act, right? If there's one thing that was good about it, was the fact that YouTube was not held liable for the copyrighted material that was uploaded on YouTube. Instead, Viacom just told YouTube, hey, this is our content. YouTube, like a mediator, said, all right, well, if that's the case, then we'll just you can either the user can dispute the claim, but until then, that means that we're gonna take down the video, either that or we're gonna demonetize it, we're gonna hide it from content, whatever, all that stuff. YouTube's not liable. And I think that something like that could definitely work with Discord, where if there was an act that said like, hey, Discord's not liable for this kind of stuff, you know, if they have the proper procedures to do A, B, and C and D to verify age. Now, the main difference here is that a lot of the content, that a lot of the things that are being done on Discord are just hands down illegal. Like, because copyright infringement isn't it isn't criminal, right? Copyright infringement is civil, as in there's damages and damages to be awarded. Nobody goes to prison. But with, you know, people being underage, you know, if you were to share not safe for work content with a minor, that's criminal. Like that's an actual criminal thing. And so, you know, the safe harbor protection, whatever, wouldn't be viable here. But I think something akin to that. I'm no lawyer, I'm no legal person, I'm no bureaucrat. I don't know how this would pan out specifically, but if something like that, if a systematic change like that made it easier for you know, a centralized thing to not have to be liable for stuff like that, right? If something akin to the safe harbor provisions could be, you know, legislated towards Discord and other centralized social media to prevent them from being, you know, strong-armed into forcing people to dox themselves to a company. You know, and I say dox. Yeah, it's not literally doxing because technically, you know, it's being put into a secure location and not everybody has access to it. But I mean, once there's a data breach, well, then you're shit out of luck, right? You can't control that data anymore. So I mean, you're effectively doxing yourself. If something like that could be implemented, I think that could totally save, like, the way things are, the status quo right now with Discord, right? But obviously that's not going to happen, especially with just us trying to switch over to alternatives. There has to be a systematic change. And while I appreciate Gamers Nexus's attempts to like help people find alternatives, and TeamSpeak's attempt to be the Discord killer, at the end of the day, Discord offers way too much. Too many people depend on it. Too many people use it, and it would be too much of a pain in the ass to move on. I think that Discord might actually win. And I know that's sad to hear. And that really is sad to hear, but there is no real alternative. Discord kind of has the monopoly on communications. It's like, not even Slack. Slack, the only reason why Slack has any like leverage above Discord is just for the mere fact that by the mere fact that Discord doesn't have the reputation that Slack has as a professional grade software. It's still seen as, you know, consumer grade. You know, I'm sure that Slack has a lot more emphasis on security and productivity. While Discord might have more features, Slack at the very least seems to be more functional in professional environments, and that's their reputation, right? And that's why they've been able to cut their small little piece of the pie and make money not off of subscriptions, but off of like corporate licenses. But at the same, you know, but Slack isn't going to do anything to replace Discord. There's not going to be a Slack casual, you know, unless somehow Slack is able to do that, rebrand a specialized version of their software to make it for the casual base. There's still no alternative to Discord at the moment, right? It's not like with Unity, where when Unity decided to, you know, to hold a gun up there to the roof of their mouth and, like, you know, pull the trigger. When Unity decided to do that, you still had Unreal Engine, and that's where a lot of people moved on towards, right? Because Unity had the reputation, but then they lost the reputation, and the feature set of Unity isn't as robust as Unreal Engine's, and so like Unity lost its one thing, which was being a free lightweight alternative. And now you have Godot taking that market share. right? Because Godot still isn't that big though. It's still relatively small, especially compared to Unity, and people are still using Unity, but it isn't as dominant as it was before. Um, in reality, I think Unreal Engine really just like usurped all of that. Um, but Discord's not in the same boat as Unity, right? If Discord gets hit, they're like, well, I think a lot of people are going to come back. You know, Discord lost like a huge chunk of their user base over the past, and I could be wrong, right? I really could be wrong here. Maybe people do stay away from Discord from now on. You know, I'm still going to use it until they do the whole ID verification stuff. And because then there has to be a serious conversation. But in reality, like, it's not because I want to, but it's because, you know, my friends are on Discord, and I don't think they'd want to like move over to TeamSpeak because they're not tech savvy. And yeah, TeamSpeak isn't the most tech savvy thing in the world, but you know, they use a lot of Discord features and stuff. You know, they're dependent on Discord, and so when I think about moving, I have to think about my own friends, right? And so when you take that situation and then you amplify it by the amounts, by the large amount of people that are using Discord, who are probably in the same boat as I am, you really have to think how many people are just going to take the hit. They're just going to end up just saying, fine, whatever, here, take my ID, I don't care. Do I still get to use Discord? Okay. And then they move on with their lives. You know, because not everybody lives on Discord, you know, and not everybody depends on it, but they still only use it as their you know, but they only, I don't, it's kind of like a weird double-edged sword. If you don't care enough about Discord, then you're still just going to use it because it's reliable software. But then if you do care about Discord, you can't leave because then you just have too much stake in it. It's fucked. It, it's a really fucked situation because there is no alternative. There is no competition. Skype's dead. What, people are going to move over to Microsoft Teams? No. um and I really don't think that there's going to be a max exodus to like self-hosted alternatives because I think many people might play around with them, and I think some people are going to have huge success with self-hosted alternatives. You know, I think some people are going to find that, hey, it works just fine. You know, it's just me and my personal friend group. That's fine or whatever. But for a lot of people, they're going to get into one hiccup with the software. They're going to Google it. They're not going to find the solution that they're looking for. And then they're going to come crawling back to Discord. You know, path of least resistance. And because there's no immediate consequence to giving your ID to Discord to verify your age, I think a lot of people are going to do that because they're not going to feel the pain immediately. They'll feel the pain when there's a data breach and their information gets leaked, and you know, somebody opens up a fake bank account, a fake credit card on their name, and you know, then they're going to be dealing with that stuff in the future. Yeah, sure, but not a lot of people think long term, and that's a sad fact about things, right? That's the bad. That's one of the bad news is, you know, like, is that I think a lot of people are just gonna take it. They're just gonna take it. They're not gonna see the immediate consequence, and because of that, they're just gonna say, yeah, sure, Discord, have my ID, whatever. You know, hell, I'll even pay Nitro because you know you really are the only one offering these services, and that sucks. It really, really sucks. I wish I'm wrong. I really do wish that I am wrong. I wish that I really do wish that I am wrong. That there is an alternative that does everything that you needed to. That people are more open-minded and aren't as as vulnerable to the comfortability of Discord that you can sacrifice. I hope my friends are open to moving on from Discord because I'm like, hey, you don't want to give your fucking ID to Discord, your social security number, whatever, all this stuff. Like you shouldn't want to, and I really do hope my friends say yes, that is reasonable. We are no longer going to use Discord. Like let's move everything. Let's go through the growing pains of going to alternative software and stuff. I hope, I really hope that is the good ending that we get. But is that realistic? Oh, oh man, this is just making me sad, man. I mean, two really bad two two really bad stories back to back this week. Honestly, if you think about it, man. Oh man, this is bad. Um, but I mean, that's all I really have to say about this, about Discord. They might not go away, and yeah, who knows? Maybe Discord will survive this. I mean, it sounds like they were taking a calculated risk, and maybe short term, yeah, they're feeling some pain short term, but in the long term, we'll just have to wait and see. Uh, but anyways, here's the last topic. Last topic for today. We're gonna spend the last 30 minutes and doing a Gold Rush post-mortem. TF2 Gold Rush, everybody. Here we go, man. TF2 Gold Rush. I've got a lot to say because I don't want to say I'm disappointed because that would imply that I had like high expectations. I didn't, right? I was hoping for something, but I wasn't hoping for a lot because I understood the realistic outlook of TF2 Gold Rush, right? It was a mod that just to give you guys context, if you guys have never heard of Gold Rush, it's a mod that's meant to like kind of move TF2 a little bit back in time. Kind of take those design philosophies of back in the day, obviously interpreted by people who maybe aren't trying to go one-to-one with the old builds of TF2, right? They're not trying to make an exact replica, rather they're trying to take the design philosophies and kind of filter it through their mind and stuff like that. And that's just what they wanted to do. At the end of the day, it really does sound like that's all they wanted to do. They wanted to make a TF2 mod, see if they could, and make a TF2 mod that is just TF2 back in time with those design philosophies, not one-to-one, but at the very least, follow those design principles as closely as possible and then iterate from there. Well, I'm assuming iterate from there because there really hasn't been that much iteration and there hasn't really been that much talk about iteration. At least that I've seen in the Discord, right? People are talking about random stuff like features and like speculation and ideas, but nothing really concrete, right? Trying to be kind of like a quality filter on TF2, and that was pretty much the plan. And honestly, overall, I think that they completed their vision as far as the first step. Like they completed that first step and they reached that goal. They pop champagne, and then the big question arrived that says, like, well, now what? Yeah, and as far as I've been able to tell, right? Because I don't participate that much in the Discord anymore. I had like my last post was a while ago, which if I were to check, oh my god, why do I keep pressing the start button? That's just muscle memory at this point, Let's see, what was my last post here? Let me check the Discord real quick. It was under the suggestions thing. Let me see here. It was 30 days ago. not even 30 days ago. It was December 31st, 2025. That was like my last actual post about something. That was, you know, remotely feedback. Um, and that was my suggestion that says, "Hey, you know, can we get a clear design document?" That's all I posted. The title was "Clear Design Document." Details was basically the title. And what's funny about that post is that initially it had two X's. It was seen as a bad idea. I got 3 comments initially that said, uh, it's not necessary and they're busy with the mod. And I was like, all right, whatever. I think that it would be something cool to have a clear design document so that way people stop asking like what is the point of Gold Rush, and then I don't have to speculate. It's on a design sheet, a design document. What exactly do you want, A, B, or C, you know, and in a perpetual state so that way no matter at what point we can compare it to the sheets and then we can base our criticisms off that. And if we agree with the design document, then we subscribe to the mod. If not, you know, we'll look somewhere else. And I remember that being the initial representation of the initial response to my suggestion. But obviously, if you were to go look at it now, now it has 7 check marks and 5 Roderick little emoticons, which usually means like, hey, that's a good idea. And then people came out, or not people. There was this one guy. What's his name? I don't remember his name. He's a guy on the on the Gold Rush forums, Gold Rush Discord, who, you know, backed me up and said like, hey, you know, this is a good idea because it describes goals. It would actually help because then you wouldn't have to deal with people asking questions all the time. They don't need to write something completely new. They can just, you know, take from previous questions and then just point people towards that document, and there you go, right? Summarize it, even throw it to like Copilot or ChatGPT or Gemini, and then tell it, hey, make a summary of, like, make an executive, make a white paper. That's what it's called. Make a white paper of these design pillars that we've had over the course or whatever, and then just make it into a design sheet. You know, because I understand, like, it's a small team. They're doing it in their free time. They're not getting paid for it. They've only been working this for like around maybe a year and a half. And hey, you know, I don't shame them for using AI for this, right? To make a white paper to summarize everything they do, right? Because maybe they don't have the capital to hire a clerk to do all that stuff, to do a fucking data entry job, right? Obviously not. These guys are just mod makers, YouTubers, whatever. They're not making the big bucks out of this mod, right? They're not looking to invest. It's something that's made as a passion project, as a fan project, whatever. You know, I'm not gonna judge them for using AI to speed up some of the more tedious stuff, like whatever. Right? This isn't a company. This isn't something that people are relying their futures on. Whatever, fine. You know, and that was my last interaction with my last real interaction. I still post every once in a while. I join in the conversation. I think the last like non Gold Rush related thing that I talked about was what was it? Anyways, not important what's the last thing I posted. What's important here is that overall, I mean, I've lost interest in the project, right? Even though I really liked the project. I liked playing on the mod. It felt nice. Once the only servers available that were populated were the EU servers, I dropped off because I'm in California. You know, I'm not going to be playing TF2 with fucking 150 ping. You know, I'm good on that. You know, Fragland, it's fine. I'd like to play something that requires a little bit more mechanical skill. You know, but at the same time, if I play any projectile class, I'm at a huge disadvantage because, you know, interpolation and stuff, right? So in the state that it is now, right, the last update was
December 9th, 2025. Not like it needs to have constant updates, right? Because it's a mod, right? It's whatever. The reason why I'm looking at this as a post-mortem is just because I thought I had an idea of what Gold Rush was going to be, of what they were aiming for, of what they wanted it to be, of what they were looking to do with it. But honestly, it's lost on me. It really is lost on me. I'm not really entirely sure um what they want from this mod, because honestly I feel like they're done. Like they're done, and it's not like they required like a live service model or anything, or a roadmap or anything like that. But at the same time, like, where do you go from here? If their entire thing was just to apply a visual polish to the game, like there's an endpoint there. Well, once you're done, what's next? And if you just look at this blurb right here on their main page, there's not much, right? Which is a shame, because like, as much as I believe that like a lot of people would prefer like just a throwback of TF2, just a pure 2008 version of TF2 to replay on for all eternity. In reality, people get bored, you know? People get bored, people move on, even someone with the most fixed hyperfixation moves on to other stuff, right? Moves on to other things, to do other stuff, because nobody truly stays on something 24/7. Eventually people have to go to sleep and people have to continue their lives. They're not just going to continue on the same thing over and over again. And while you might say, well, some people fucking play gotcha games all the fucking time, and they don't really change that much. Well, they still get like new content and stuff. They still understand the principle of that. With TF2 Gold Rush, I mean, I feel like there was a good opportunity to do something new and exciting, but still keep that foundation of something that's within its boundaries of its identity, because it could have totally built an identity off of that idea of keeping TF2 as close as possible to the original design, to its original design pillars, and just keeping that those boundaries of where you can take the game, right? I think a good direction that they could have taken the game would have been TF2, but if it kept these strict design pillars throughout its life cycle. I think that would have been a really good way to kind of keep the ball moving, but at the same time keep things under restraint. Because at the end of the day, I really don't believe people who just say, "Oh, I just want to play a pure 2008 version of TF2," and then just keep it that way. No, I think I really do think that most people are have a drive to experiment and to do stuff new. It's just that you just got to do it in such a way that like that's within their boundaries of preference. I think taking that the mod in that direction would have done a lot better than what it is now, because I kind of do agree with a lot of people that said like, well, Gold Rush has no future. Maybe those exact words haven't been said, but I know that sentiment does exist, right? Because with TF2 Classified, TF2 Classic, TF2 Classified, there is kind of a future, right? It has a full-time development team, or not full-time, it has a more consistent development team than TF2 Gold Rush, right? They're bringing new features, bringing all this stuff. They have their own vision for the game that is not necessarily classic TF2. right? They have their own vision. I'm not saying it's bad, right? I'm just saying it's different. They have their own vision. Um, they have their own vision of where they're taking the game, and so does Gold Rush. But the difference between Gold Rush and Classified is that Classified has a future. There's a reason to stick with the game. TF2 Gold Rush does not have that future. People don't really know where it's going because, well, first of all, you don't really have a centralized place to look at it, right? You don't really have any hope of where it's going to go. And at the same time, like, there is an endpoint with the current with the current vision of what Gold Rush is. There is an endpoint. There is a place that is going to end, and that is when everything gets considered. When everything gets considered, once they go through every single hat, weapon, whatever, maybe rework it, or if they're just taking TF2 retail TF2 and just filtering out all the bad, all the suck, right? Subjective suck, obviously. If they're just filtering the subjective suck from TF2 Gold Rush, I'm not TF2 Gold Rush, from retail TF2, just taking away, trimming away all the fat, and then just putting it into Gold Rush, and then that's what TF2 Gold Rush is. Well, there's an endpoint because eventually you're gonna run out of stuff to cut the fat on with retail TF2. It's gonna be, it's over, right? Like, what then? At least that's how it feels like with the current vision. And so, like, that's why I feel that Gold Rush is spiritually dead, though maybe not effectively, right? There's still people playing the mod. And every now and then, maybe I will join a fucking Fragland server, Fragland session, even if I have fucking 200 ping. But I think spiritually, in the zeitgeist of TF2, it's a dead mod, right? There's not really much to go with it. There's not really much to do with it. It's kind of like what happened with Gary's mod at the end of its life cycle, right? Where one of the reasons why people stayed around with it was because there was a future with it, right? New servers, new game modes, and all that stuff, and it worked with a set amount of systems, and you had a huge YouTube community and all that stuff. Whatever, all these factors that kept the game alive because there was a future with it. There was a reason to be invested, is what I ultimately mean, right? But then once you lost that, people moved on from Gmod, as well as other reasons, right? Roblox and pretty much Roblox, right? Like, all the kids moved on to Roblox, Gary's mod and stuff, and Sandbox is taking forever to release, and I don't think that Sandbox is gonna be anywhere near the culture phenomenon that Gmod was. That's how I feel like the state of Gold Rush is, especially after the new year. It's just, I think there really does have to be a huge change in the mentality, or not mentality. No, it's because it really isn't the fault of the developers, right? It's not the fault of the people making the mod. At the end of the day, Gold Rush was a success, right? It was a packaged product. It released, a lot of people played it, but it wasn't something that was meant to be sustained, or at least that's how it appears to be. It doesn't look like something that was meant to be sustained long term. They released it, and then they're like, well, now what? Well, and I do have to commend them for that, because it is a fun mod right now. It feels good to not have to deal with a fucking mini sentry or Demo Knight sometimes. Sometimes Demo Knight can be infuriating when there's somebody who's just really good at Demo Knight, right? There are some things that are infuriating about retail TF2, like the obnoxious hats, the obnoxious paints. It's sometimes I do feel a little relieved when I launch Gold Rush and I don't get fucking bombarded with with cases and crates, you know. When when I can live for a moment and not remember that Valve is still selling gambling, you know. Is there's a little bit of solace in that. And that's what this mod does give. It's that little bit of solace. And so for it being a packaged product that was released, I think that's where the success is. But as something that was sustained, as something that was that was thought to be, you know, iterated on, it feels directionless. It feels futureless. It feels that like this is it. That's done. And if I were the developers, I wouldn't blame them if one day they just decided, well, you know what? Fine. You know, hey, we did the Gold Rush mod. We want to move on to something else. I wouldn't blame them. You know, I could always find 12 other people to play with, and then we just launch a server and then just play some Gold Rush, you know, for the fun of it, right? But yeah, I mean, I really do feel that Gold Rush at this point in time, it's gone through its life cycle. You know, and it's a little upsetting, but you know, Classified is the TF2 mod right now, and then that's how it is. But yeah, I that's all I really have for you guys today. You know, hey, first 2-hour show, the BR show, Broad and Retro show. The VOD will be uploaded on the After Hours channel. You know, that's where it'll be available. I'm gonna have to cut out the initial couple minutes of this stream, but you know, thank you so much for watching. If you're here, you know, if you're watching this as a VOD, thank you so much for listening for 2 hours of me rambling about NVIDIA DLS S5 that looks like ass and that is poisoning our water, a Discord which will probably survive, which is the doomer interpretation of this whole thing. And Gold Rush, TF2 Gold Rush, this neat product that really didn't have a future, but it was still a success by it coming out at all. But you know, obviously TF2 Classify kind of usurped, it kind of said its dominance. You know, if you got this far, thank you so much for listening. I really do appreciate it. This is the first episode. I really do hope that if I keep this consistently, we'll get more viewers over time. There's always stuff to talk about. There's always stuff that I want to talk about that I just can't make a video essay for. And I do appreciate anybody who watched this first episode. You know, this is the beginning of something that I would like for it to grow over time. There's been hiccups. I hope that with each episode keeps getting better. All right. This is my project for 2026. Thank you so much for listening. Please join the Discord if you haven't already. If you're listening through the VOD, hopefully I remember to put the Discord in the description. Thank you so much for watching, for listening, for anything, right? Subscribe, like the video, make sure to leave a comment. Yeah, you know, thank you so much for watching the show, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Have a good one.